Okay, welcome to Detroit in Black and White. We're got a light crew here tonight. It's Friday night here in the Motor City. We've got Jim Nardone, the former police chief of Trenton. Welcome, Jim.
Good evening. Happy Friday. Happy Friday to all our viewers.
Thanks. And I'm Allan Lengel, co-founder of Deadline Detroit. We are missing in action Adolph Mongo, so the founder of the show. And we are missing Vanessa Moss. But we'll try to entertain you for as long as we can. And if we can't, we'll just pull the plug early. So anyways, Jim, is there anything you want to say, anything that's been going on this week?
Well, yeah, I think there's something we talked about a little bit on Wednesday. We didn't get a chance to get into it, but I had made some statements that I think you maybe disagreed with strongly about the press, and I was generally talking about people's perception, the perception, and the difference between perception and reality, and everybody's to blame. But I was just going to talk about contrast, and Charlie LaDuff had a podcast in the last couple of weeks, and a couple of his statements. So these are his statements. These aren't my statements. And I'm going to read some statements from a congresswoman from Massachusetts. He said, if I may, can I?
Yeah, go for it.
He said, I went out with ICE. The agents from the Detroit field office were methodical, precise, and professional. We picked up convicted drug dealers, convicted car thieves, and one gentleman who'd been deported previously 3 times. He said, ICE raids are more professional than a military invasion. And then we have a congresswoman. So the contrast is Ayanna Pressley from Massachusetts, who made it a point over the Thanksgiving holiday to say that, people are being abducted and deported. She said that the Trump administration has abducted thousands of people. Their families were spending Thanksgiving with open seats at the table. I'm thinking of our neighbors with an empty seat at the dinner table. Those lost, on and on. But she made a specific point about people being deported and how, she's outraged. So I guess the point I was trying to make Wednesday, I didn't get around to it, is where does the truth lie? Is it, I worked with ICE extensively, so I have a pretty good opinion of ICE.
How long ago?
Pre 2017, right?
Yeah.
So my point is only this.
It's an organization, though, now, I think.
My point is this. I may be a little biased because of my experience, but they were professional. And Charlie's talking about his mother's neighborhood. We get all that, right? This was a raid they did in Westland, and this was a targeted raid, and everything's different. But I think the point I was trying to make, Alan, maybe you can dive into it a little bit, is where does the truth lie? I know that, sure, if a reporter probably went out on a search warrant with a drug team, that they may not, the officers may not, click that those handcuffs, that extra link, or they may not, be a little pushy shovey that they might be. I get that. I understand that, but I can't imagine they'd operate very differently just because Charlie LaDuff was along for the ride.
Well, oh, come on. If you had a press person along, do you think you're going to be doing some shady stuff? Look, they may have had a list of actual people with criminal convictions that they had an agenda to go after. But what we're seeing, I just watched the news tonight. I can't remember if it was in North Carolina or whatever. They chased one woman down the street, and she ran into the house. And I think her father, she was like 23 years old. Her father came out. She was an American citizen. And then when the father explained that she was an American citizen and stuff, they went away. They arrested another woman, handcuffed her. She was apparently driving. She was a U.S. citizen. She was driving. Maybe her boyfriend was there illegally or whatever.
Yeah, he was the target, and they stopped the car.
They stopped her, but what? And also the New York Times has done a breakdown, and it's like, I don't think any of us are going to object to criminals being deported, but
I don't think that's accurate. I don't think you're accurate. I think that the press is trying to report the salacious, the
No.
exciting and salacious, regardless of, let's face it, it was on world news that driving.
You think that's an exception? Do you think that's the only instance that they caught on?
Absolutely not. But my
the
point
thing
is, I don't think
yeah.
it's the only. I don't think it's the only exception. I think they may be a little bit more cast in a wide net, and I'm not suggesting that I agree with it. What I'm saying to you is, when the police, I'll call them the police, the ICE police, stop a car that was registered to somebody that was a target of an investigation, and the girl got caught up in it, and she got handcuffed and released, it shouldn't be world news. I'll just say that.
Well, I'll say this: there's probably no reason to handcuff her and put her under arrest. But I mean, I don't know all the facts of it. But
sure, nor do I.
I'm going to say this: the New York Times did. I mean, like I say, we can't object. Generally speaking, I'm sure some people can, but can't object if they're arresting people, criminal records who have really, but we're also talking about some people who had, some violation, like an assault 30 years ago. They've owned a business, they've got a family here, and they're ripping them out. Is that, I think the New York Times report was basically saying it's a very small percentage of the people that they are taking that have criminal records. And that was the whole thing. They were supposed to be taking criminal records. But what's happened is, if you're Hispanic, and, people in Southwest Detroit right here are scared shitless. Some people are walking around with their passports or green cards or whatever to show that they're here illegally. But they're just going after people and it's like the woman they chased. I don't think that's unusual that they're going after people who are Hispanic and asking,
She was not Hispanic, I don't believe, was she? Anyway,
I don't know.
I'm not sure. Hello, Jill. Thanks.
I'll just say one last thing. I'll say my niece has some friends, this couple, and they have a child. The husband is Mexican. He was a lawyer in Mexico. He was living here, U.S. citizen, but they moved back to Mexico because they didn't feel safe being here, and that's not what we want to create here. We want to create a safer environment, not a scary environment, except for all the white Anglo people who say, what are we worried about? Of course you're not worried about it, because they're going after the other people. Wait till they start coming after you. And then, I mean, the fact.
But that's the position, Alan. My point is just this: what are the facts? Hello, Stephanie Jackson, Jill Sheridan. It was a different time. You're right. Thank you for your comment. Karen Winston. Hello, Karen. Edward Alt. Janet Overall. Good evening to you. Dorian Denard. Good evening, Dorian. But my point, my question was for our viewers and for you and for everybody was exactly what Charlie LaDuff said. I quoted him. That they were methodical, precise, and professional. They picked up drug dealers, convicted car thieves, and a man had been deported 3 times. And he said that they had targeted each of these individuals. So what you're suggesting is that these are go ahead.
Let me tell you something. When I was at the Washington Post, I did a lot of ride-alongs and just to get story ideas and to make contacts with people. I would go to one of the precincts or whatever, and they would say, okay, yeah, you want to do a ride-along? You're from the Washington Post. Here, we're going to give you this person. Do you think they gave me like a rogue cop
to
ride along with?
No,
they gave me the best, the best behaved, the most professional people they could find for me. They didn't say like, oh, give him Joe. He's a madman.
I didn't say there weren't dishonest
cops.
I'm just saying, I didn't say that.
When Charlie is going out and he's arranged to go out, they pick the most professional agents. They don't pick a guy who they've already heard stories about. They pick probably veterans who have an agenda, and they say, here, this is your job. This is your assignment for today, guys. We have a list of people with felonies, convictions. We want you to go after them. and they're going to be, they're going to be professional. You think they're going to they're going to act unprofessionally? I'm not saying,
Well,
look,
you're missing my point. My point is,
I understood your point, but
who is right? Is Ayanna Pressley right, or is Charlie LaDuff right, or are neither one of them right?
They're both right. I mean, look, there's a lot of professional ICE agents, and there's some non-professional ones, and there's ones who are profiling and doing illegal, stops. And I don't think it's probable cause that you're Hispanic, and maybe you know the law as an officer. I don't know that you can have probable cause just because you're Hispanic.
That wouldn't be considered probable cause. That wouldn't even be considered reasonable suspicion. That would be nothing.
Right.
Well, but is it really happening, or is the press reporting something that is not happening?
It's happening. No. It's happening.
I don't know. I'm not
multiple incidents. It doesn't matter.
Do you have a problem with the lady that got stopped that was driving the target's car and put in handcuffs? I mean, I guess that's a good question for all our viewers. Do you have a problem if Allan Lengel was a suspect in a homicide, and his girlfriend was driving the car, and they stopped the car and they put your girlfriend in handcuffs when they were looking for you? I mean, that's a great question. I don't know what our viewers think. She's driving a target of ICE's vehicle. So we have to look at all the facts and not just
tell me, as an officer, a former police chief, what's it? Go ahead. Give me.
I don't know. I wasn't there on this particular incident. What I'm suggesting to you is maybe I don't think it was World Newsly. I don't think it should have been on a World News because somebody that was driving a wanted suspect's car got put in handcuffs. I just don't think that's big news. That happens every day. Cops will run a hit. We had this homicide where the guy ended up getting killed last. And I live on the border of Trenton, and they said the car was pinged. Well, it wasn't pinged. There's a license plate reader at the end of my street. Right?
But there's a difference also when we're talking about immigration officers. It's wild out there now. I mean, they're invading, businesses and all that kind of stuff, and they've been rounding up people who are legal, who have green cards or work credentials to be able to work here. So
thank you, Shared Story.
Shared Story agrees with you. So
I just think that they are building it up. They're building the propaganda up. And so we don't really, whether you can call it Charlie LaDuff or Ayanna Pressley or whoever it is, we're not getting good information. And some of it's probably the administration. There's no question about that. The way they run their propaganda machine, as we've seen with Kristi Noem.
Well, let me ask you,
running a propaganda machine too.
Do you say, okay, one black motorist gets shot or beaten, and you say, well, how many black motorists are stopped every day and we don't hear about that? Why should just one black motorist? Why should we?
This isn't the same, Allan.
They're going after. I'm sorry, they're going after people who are American citizens or are here legally. They're going after people who are going through the procedures. Sometimes they're trying to get asylum. They're showing up at court. ICE is showing up and arresting them.
That was 9 months ago, Allan, when that happened, and that the judge, and be a little objective. I'm not suggesting that it was right, but what
you're dismissing.
I'm not dismissing anything, but you're talking about an incident that happened 9 months ago.
It's happening. It's not the only. That's not.
It probably isn't. I agree. I agree with
you. MO. They're showing up to court. That's their MO. They're doing everything. They're stopping people who look Hispanic. I'm sorry.
And I recently heard a story about a court in Southgate where a friend of mine's brother, retired deputy police chief, works, and they had taken some people in for shoplifting who were from somewhere in South America, and they played stupid and they didn't know anything until they got a Spanish-speaking officer in there, and then they changed their mind and started telling the truth. So these things happen too. I'm not.
Well, I don't know that
I'm not telling you who's right and wrong. I'm just telling you I don't believe any of them. I don't believe Charlie LaDuff. I don't believe it's all as sparkly and shiny as Charlie said. And I don't believe it's as bad as Ayanna Pressley said. That's my point. We don't know what's really going on.
Jim, you can't. Well, you're looking for one narrative, one direct narrative.
I'm just giving you two examples and saying, where does the truth lie?
Well, I believe Charlie, because Charlie went out, and like I said, I know as a fact when I would do ride-alongs, they would put me with the most professional officers. They didn't put me with officers who had citizen complaints and all that. I always went with the officers who were, the best of the cream of the crop, and they probably put them. They know the professional ICE agents are. You know that from being on police forces that some officers are more professional than others.
Well, there's no question about that. I was involved in a federal and a state task force, and I'm going to tell you, there was a few people that I didn't enjoy working with, and and I would suggest to you they probably did things to get into houses or into cars or whatever that was, whether it was illegal, immoral, whatever you want to call it. Right? They're out there. I never said they weren't out there. My only point is we aren't getting the facts. We're getting one lady in handcuffs in a field because she was driving a bad guy's car. And we're getting Charlie LaDuff acting like it's, the 4th of July at Belle Isle and they're going out and having a great time. And, so my point is, who's telling the truth?
But
is it all your way or is it all the other way?
But Jim, you're saying we're not, what's the truth is like, there are a lot of truths and perhaps not truths, but because here's one report and here's another. You're looking for one conclusive thing to get the whole story. But look, I believe Charlie when he writes that. I believe the woman who is running down the street from the agents and her father comes out and says, "What's going on?" Thought she was trying to be kidnapped, and then they leave.
Well, that's all bullshit too. They're getting kidnapped by off.
That's
the propaganda.
Wait a minute, Jim.
That's the propaganda. It says ICE police on her uniform.
She's running down the street. She runs into the house. The father comes out, sees these people, whatever. I don't know if they were wearing masks or not. I'd be concerned as a father. My daughter's running down the street from some men for what? She's done nothing wrong. She's an American citizen.
So they had no idea. They were just victims of it all. That's your position. They're all victims.
Okay. Some are, and some aren't. Some are people, but you're also seeing a lot.
I'm interested in what our viewers think. I think Donald Trump got elected.
Jim, let me finish. Look, there's different stories, and just because one may contradict the other in terms of what the narrative is, it doesn't mean that one is false and one is not. If Charlie's writing that, I believe Charlie.
And it doesn't mean that what CNN or Fox News is reporting is accurate either, is what I'm getting at.
Well, we don't. Well, you're. If you can prove that it's not, we have to go under the premise that it is. We have some evidence. Contrary.
My only point is. Thank you. Depends on what the agency wants to put. I agree, Edward Alt, and I think Kristi Noem is a dangerous human being when it comes to some of the things she did with the guy that was deported to El Salvador. I think they made up some stories that weren't actually accurate, right? I think the Department of whatever she is, Department of Justice, Interior, whatever her role is, Secretary of she's a Secretary of.
You're talking about Kristi Noem?
Yes, I can't remember what.
Department of Homeland Security.
She's the Department of Homeland Security. I think she made up some stories, and I didn't agree with them. But my point is, like I said earlier, one young lady who's driving a bad guy's car that gets put in handcuffs should not be on World News Tonight. Not one lady who wasn't. That's.
I think, Jim, the point they were trying to show is the drama that's
the propaganda they call it.
No, and you're calling it propaganda. I'm calling it a slice of life here that they're trying to show ICE agents out in the field and what is going on. I mean, is it propaganda?
It's ugly out there. I'm going to tell you, it's sloppy. A lot of bad things are going on. That's what happens when police go after bad guys. It happens every day. It's whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent. It happens every day. All over this country.
Let me ask you, a wife who's driving the car, she's driving, let's say, a nice car, and she is pulled over. Her husband is wanted for something. They'll say, "Where's your husband?" She goes, "I don't know." And, you're driving his car. You got to know. Well, should they cuff that person? I don't know.
We don't know what happened before she was handcuffed. We don't know.
I
They
think she would.
identified her. She made a scene, and the liberal propagandists put it on CNN and everywhere around the world. So we don't know what she really did, other than she was driving a bad guy's car.
Maybe some people want to know what ICE is doing out there. I mean, maybe we have a police force out there that is maybe stepping over the line, and
maybe we do, and maybe we don't, though. Have you ever thought of that, Alan? Have you ever thought that maybe these people are wrong? Has that even crossed your mind?
ICE pushed back and said, "Hey, we're just doing our job. We have nothing to apologize for." So that's
my only point. Is I'm drawing a comparison between two ops. They're not my words. They're Charlie LaDuff's word and Ayanna Pressley. I don't represent either one of them, but they sure are way apart on the truth of what's going on.
But that's so what? Those are two different stories. There are some good parts of it. There are some bad parts. Why do you find it so difficult to try to weigh each one and say one of them's got to be not true?
No, I didn't say that. That's not what I said. I said, where does the truth lie? And the truth lies somewhere in the middle. It doesn't lie in your propaganda liberal. It doesn't lie on Fox News's conservative bullshit. It's somewhere in the middle. And because people don't tell us the truth, we'll never know what ICE is really doing, because CNN ain't reporting it and Fox News ain't. That's my point. Charlie LaDuff's reporting it. Ayanna Presley's reporting it, but she's not on scene. Charlie was. That's my only point. I don't know who's right. I just continue to tell you that we will never know exactly what ICE is doing because the press doesn't want us to.
Yeah, it's your very selective view. You're
no, not at all.
You're not. I'm guessing you are not that informed about everything. You are not consuming all kinds of stories.
Absolutely not. You're absolutely correct.
And so you're drawing.
Because I don't want my brain poisoned like you. I'm going to let them poison your brain. I don't need my brain poisoned. I want to know what's really going on. I want to know if ICE is doing this or they're not doing it. You just want to believe that they're all bad guys. That's the liberal position.
Look, then if you want to know, then go watch Fox. Go watch. I don't like Fox. They like to. Fox is celebrating people getting killed down along South America. That's not my life. I don't believe in that. I think that's wrong, right? I think it's wrong to kill people that you haven't identified. As if they found 600 kilos and they have evidence that they had 600 kilos and that they should intercept that vehicle, right? They shouldn't bomb it. We don't do that to drug dealers in Michigan. We don't bomb their houses because they have 6 kilos in their garage. So I don't want to watch a news station that celebrates the killing of people for alleged crimes. It's interesting. But that's propaganda. I recognize that. The problem is I recognize both sides of the propaganda. You only recognize one. I see both. But let me say this. Pete Hegseth, our Secretary of Defense, our Secretary of War, has defended the two guys who were holding onto the boat after the boat had been blown up, and he just said that in the fog of war. So The Onion, which is a satirical fictional publication, put this out, which I thought was a little humor there. Did you get the humor, Jim? Yes, he's a bad guy. He should not be anywhere near the government. There's so many people there. I mean, I would say Marco Rubio. I may not agree with a lot of stuff, but I feel like he's a responsible adult who's qualified, who's capable. He's the only one. And then you get to Hegseth, who was a drunken whatever. His mother was dissing him, and then you got Kash Patel, who in the first administration, William Barr, the Attorney General, said they wanted to make Kash Patel the deputy director of the FBI, and William Barr said, "Over my dead body." Well, he's running the FBI right now. He lives in Vegas. I'm sorry, you got a job in DC, move your ass to DC, live there. You want to have a vacation home or whatever, but he says, "I live in Vegas. That's why I fly the plane around." It's like, I'm sorry, it's like Trump, he probably would have, Melania wanted to live in New York. I'm surprised that Trump even moved to the White House. But hey, Edwards, looking for Vanessa. She disappeared. I don't know if she's already tired of us. We're glad you guys are still with us. Hello, Vanessa. Vanessa's hanging. Bomb was dropped in Philly for loud music and using a megaphone. That's Karen Winston. Those cops should be in jail.
Mr. Duckett had said something about giving the cops the benefit of the doubt. I was not in this particular case giving anybody the benefit of the doubt. I was just drawing comparison. It's not and I probably do. As I said earlier, I'm a little biased. I've seen bad cops and I've seen a lot of good cops, and they're both out there. Anybody that thinks there's not criminals that are out there as cops is
right,
living in the dark ages. There's plenty of cops out there that shouldn't be wearing a uniform.
Let's take a break. Friday night here, Detroit in black and white. We've got a skeleton crew this evening, but we'll be right back after this commercial.
And we'll touch on Dorian's point.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. Are you living in the home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, or maybe you know someone who's in the same situation? The probate process may be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. We have several nonprofit partners who have free attorneys who can assist you. Contact our office, 313-224-5990, or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. Don't lose your family property. Some of these properties have been in the family for 4 or 5 generations. Contact us now. We're here to help.
Welcome back to Detroit in black and white. Like I said, we've got a light crew tonight. Adolph Mongo is not here, and Vanessa Moss. And hopefully they'll be joining us tomorrow. I'm not sure if we're going to be doing it virtually or from the Guardian building. But anyways, we're here with Jim Nardone, the former police chief of Trenton. And as you might tell, Jim and I have some differences of opinion, which I guess makes for a lively show. Jim, go ahead.
I just good comments. We appreciate your input, Mr. Duckett. The drug ship was blown up using Obama's double tap strike, Stephanie Jackson. Stephanie says that I think drug trafficking as defense of the country is a war crime. I guess the question, I think you're suggesting, maybe help me out, Stephanie, that it's okay. And I have a problem with. I just have a problem with that. If you can identify a ship in the Gulf of Mexico, you need to intercept that ship. There's other methods than just dropping bombs on these people. That's my only thing. We have due process in this country, as everyone's fighting about. So, I guess, as I say, if we had a fishing boat off of San Diego and they wandered down the coast and Mexico blew it up, I think there would be some problems. We don't know what they really had, as Dorian said.
Right. I mean,
Mary said, do you feel the same way about genocide Trump and genocide Biden, Kamala? I don't have any excuses for any of it. We talk about war and how some of the things happen, but whether it's Vietnam or Afghanistan, wherever. When you're playing with weapons like that, innocent people get killed, as we've seen all across the world, and it's not stopping. And there's no excuse for it, whatever it is. I'd rather they intercept the boat. You don't know who's on that boat. Maybe they do know. Maybe they have. I can't understand why they're not sending out facts to say we recovered 1,200 kilos of heroin or cocaine or something on that boat. I still don't think it's a good enough reason to kill people, right. But where's the evidence? You're going to say it's blown up.
We had the DEA work with the Colombian government back in the 80s and 90s. We're bombing labs. We're basically at war with the cartels, but we're not working with any government. And we've got all these big ships, these destroyers out there. We certainly have the capability of seizing those boats, arresting those people. I mean, the message gets through one way or another. I mean, if you're trying to send a message like stop trying to, export drugs to our country. The biggest fear that Colombian cartel people had was being extradited to the U.S. and being put in U.S. prisons.
Well, they can be pardoned?
Well, yeah, now they could be. But yeah, we had the ex-Honduran president who was pardoned. He got 45 years. He was supposed to get out in 2060. He was just convicted last year in a federal court in Brooklyn. Got 45 years, and now he's served maybe a year and a half, and he's out. He was taking drugs from El Chapo. And let me tell you, having covered federal government for decades and covered major cases, the case that the government put together to prosecute and not only extradite and prosecute a foreign leader is massive. And for, I'm told millions and millions of dollars putting that case together and getting a conviction and trying to, if you're trying to send a message, but the message is, if you got money or whatever it is, you can get a pardon with this administration.
Well, a great example of a federal investigation, and I was involved in a few, is it took 5 years to get to bring the suspect forward in Virginia that set the bombs out on January of 2021. Okay, Stephanie, thank you. I understand. I don't agree with the killing. Has the general that stepped down in the Caribbean spoken to Congress? I'm sure he has a story to tell. And our dimes finance the madness. Karen Winston. Do you have a problem with Oliver North and Reagan government responsible for the crack trade imposed on black people to marry? I've got a lot of problems with Oliver North and Ronald Reagan. I think that's a long weekend show. That's a 4-hour. But thank you for the comment, Mary.
There's a great show on Hulu called, I think, Snow or something, that and I don't know how much is true and how much is not, but it's based basically on the CIA funding the Contras in Nicaragua through cocaine sales and the CIA being involved and all that. So it's an interesting story, and there probably was some. I mean, part of the whole story, for people who don't know, is that the Reagan administration was had problems funding arms for the Contras down in Nicaragua, so they had to find alternative ways. And supposedly they,
not supposedly, they sold arms to Iran that they were prohibited from doing.
They sold arms, but also they were saying that that they were involved in the cocaine trafficking to raise big money to buy arms, to smuggle arms through to Nicaragua. So.
And a very important message that I think we need to cover here is Edward Alt 5085 says, as a military member myself, there's no justification for killing survivors. That was a job for Interpol. Thank you, homie. I agree. We don't agree with the killing. If there's thousands. Go ahead, Alan.
Somebody had said the show is Snowfall, and yeah, I mean, if you have Hulu, it's a phenomenal show. And it certainly raises some issues.
There was a point here. Marco needs to go too. Jill Sheridan. Jill, I'm not suggesting Marco's a great guy. I think he's the calm in the storm. He's the only calm in the storm. I think. I don't know. Maybe he's a madman too.
Yeah, well,
Doreen Denard says, finally getting back to you, Doreen, thank you. You won't really know unless you're there, period. The truth is actually never told. That was kind of my point, Doreen. I appreciate that. Kenneth Powell, like and share the edutainment. Thank you. At our police relations meeting, Janet Overall, we've had police officers attending department uniforms, SRT, EMS, and police officers help the residents. That's the answer to policing, Janet, is community policing. I'm not thrilled. Maybe I'm old school. I'm not thrilled with the police officers with their new, those heavy vests. They look like they just crawled out of a Sherman tank somewhere. I don't think that's the way police officers, communicate with the public with those heavy, military style vests. I just think that we're getting away from that a little too much, Janet. I appreciate your comment. I hope I find someone to give me the benefit of the doubt, like Jim gives every law enforcement. We talked about a little bit earlier. I don't. I just need to look at the facts, Mr. Duckett. I'm not even talking about my position, but I can only tell you about my experience. I can't tell you about your experience. So I worked in a federal task force. I also, we were very attached to ICE. We had our police department, our little police department for 15 years had an officer assigned to Homeland Security Investigations, which is really ICE. It's the investigative branch. So I've had a lot of experience working with them, both on the road and as an administrator. So, and I can only say that my experience was favorable. I'm not suggesting that they're all great, but the people that I dealt with, they follow the Constitution, and that's all. That's where you start. Ira Todd, hey Ira, good happy Friday to you. Hope you're feeling okay. Yeah. Thank you, Jill, for the Homeland Security Director of Homeland Security. Kidnappers don't have lights and in uniform.
Let me read something from ProPublica, which is a great nonprofit organization with some of the best,
like the Guardian.
Well, it's got some of the best reporters in the country. Anyways, they have a report here, and this is they say that let's see, I'm sorry here. Whoops. It says when the Supreme Court recently allowed immigration agents in the Los Angeles area take race into consideration during sweeps, Justice Brett Kavanaugh said that citizens shouldn't be concerned. And then it says, but that is far from reality. Many citizens have experienced. Americans have been dragged, tackled, beaten, tased, and shot by immigration officers. They've had their necks kneeled on. They've had outside in the rain in their underwear. At least 3 citizens were pregnant when agents detained them. One of those women had already had the door of her home blown off while Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem watched. About 24 Americans have said they were held for more than a day without being able to phone lawyers or loved ones. Videos of U.S. citizens being mistreated by immigration agents have filled social media feeds, but there is little clarity on the overall picture, which is what you bring up. The government does not track how often immigration agents hold Americans. So ProPublica created an account. We compiled and reviewed every case we could find of agents holding citizens against their will, whether during immigration raids or protests. While the tally is almost certainly incomplete, we found more than 170 such incidents during the first 9 months of the President Donald Trump's second administration. Among the citizens detained are nearly 20 children, including 2 with cancer. That includes 4 who were held for weeks with their undocumented mother and without access to the family attorney until a congresswoman intervened. So again, it's not a complete picture, but it's certainly a picture that raises concerns.
So that's, I'm not making excuses for any of them, but you're talking about 8 to 10 people a month out of the thousands and thousands. Again, I'm not making excuses. One's too many, but 170 in 9 months. Is that what you're?
They said 107. That's just what they've been at. Yeah.
Sure. And there's probably a lot more than that. And then that's not, they should be following the Constitution. And if they don't follow the Constitution, they should be held accountable.
I think, like I say, one of the issues is they are stopping people who are Hispanic or who look Hispanic. And I think it's no different than what we've had over the many years of officers stopping Black people just because they're Black.
So you're talking about a specific, if you're stopping everybody who looks Hispanic in Los Angeles, you're gonna be pretty busy.
Well, that's why you flood the zone.
I mean, I can't imagine they could detain every Hispanic.
No, but they could have a field day. It's a pretty rich pool to go at it. If you're looking for numbers,
I'm making light of it, but it's not funny. I don't think it's funny.
If you're looking for quotas, which Stephen Miller started saying, initially they said, we're going to go after the bad of the bad. We're going to get rid of criminals. And everyone's like, yeah. So then after a while, he's like, just round up people. We need numbers. And
well, that's what we hear. We don't know if that's true or not. I can't imagine. I mean, they don't get paid by, they don't get paid by numbers. So
They don't.
just
The
look at
agents don't. The agents don't. But the Stephen Miller, I mean, he's a propagandist, So what does
Thank
that
you,
mean?
Kieran Winston. They mimic the slave patrols. If what they're doing, if what's being reported that they're doing that, then they do. But we don't know that.
Well, the problem is that also Trump has fired a lot of the inspectors general who oversee. So really, as somebody raises a question, what government agency is going to look into it? Not if Trump tells
That's
Pam
the big
Bondi,
point. That's a big question. Go ahead.
it's scary. It's scary. I mean,
Is the Justice Department going to hold these individuals these all the way from the bottom line all the way up to the top? I'm not that optimistic that this administration will hold federal officers accountable. They have to follow the law, and they have to and they any of them, whether it's the Secretary of Defense or the Secretary, they should be held accountable. And if they go to prison, they should go to prison. If they're doing the things that this report is suggesting, then they have a big problem, because there's going to be a lot of lawsuits.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to find out. First of all, there's, as you know, there's somebody that runs HSI ICE, the field office out there in Los Angeles. Where's he at? What's he saying? If they've detained 170 or 270 or 470 people that they shouldn't have detained, heads need to roll. They should roll. There was a question, Edward Alt. Here's my question to both of you. If government law enforcement is wrong, who holds them accountable? Well, the justice system needs to, and that's what we're talking about. There is some doubt whether the justice system, whether there's somebody strong enough that's the director of that group that's going to be able to do that. Because, just like the FBI, they have a national person, a director, and a director should be holding people accountable, whether it's his field office. I'm not hearing that here. I'm not hearing that. Los Angeles is a place where there's a lot of activity.
There's a lot. I'm sure there's a lot of people there who are not documented. I mean, it's a huge population. It's a border state. You're going to.
But if they're violating the Constitution, somebody needs to hold them accountable, and it's got to be the justice. It would have to be the U.S. justice system.
You would think, but I mean, I don't have confidence that Pam Bondi is going to do anything. That's I think Trump is like, screw it. I mean, he's an outlaw. He doesn't say, let's enforce the law. He's just like, do what I say, and don't worry about it. If you do something illegal, I'll pardon you. Who cares?
I certainly don't have confidence in the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, personally. So, do I think he would hold his agents accountable if they? I don't. I think
know. If they were disloyal to Trump, he would. They've gotten rid of hundreds of agents now. It's not like, and not to denigrate a Walmart greeter, because, God bless them, but it doesn't take a lot of training, and to have training and to have people, agents, as you've worked with agents, and preparing cases.
I've been to the FBI Academy. I spent 10.5 weeks at the FBI Academy. I know what kind of training that they undertake, and I would be shocked if a sensible FBI agent broke the law on behalf of his supervisory special agent, his field office, his boss at the field office, or anybody else. They're not trained that way. Right. So, you have a friend that writes for you sometimes that, and he's got his personal positions, but I should bring him on the show. No police officer is going to go shoot somebody for shoplifting because the chief told him to, right? Because he's going to jail.
Right.
These guys they're smart people. The people in the FBI are typically, they have advanced degrees or they're lawyers, and I can't see them going to prison because Cash Patel told them to do something illegal. I'm sure there's a couple of them that might, but the majority of them are not going to do that.
I mean, Greg Stayskill, who does write for sometimes, he was with the FBI for 31 years. He was the resident agent in charge of the Ann Arbor office for quite a long time. He was a Republican, a moderate Republican, and he's not. I mean, the FBI tends to be, and I knew some Democrats in the FBI, but a lot of them are Republicans, and a lot of them are more conservative. But the people I've talked to are, most who have left now are not happy at all with what's going on, and they're very bothered by what they're seeing in the agency, and they fear the damage that's being done.
And in a roundabout way, what Edward said is, and being a former military guy, he's always a military guy, he's never former, but thank you, Edward, is that, when you work with people that are responsible, they hold themselves accountable. I guess that's the way the FBI would do it. There's agents in there that have law degrees are going to say, no, I'm not doing that, or we're not going to go that way. And I have a hard time believing that it's, I'm not saying there's not rogue groups of ICE agents out there. They changed the whole ICE process with how long you have to go to training and what your educate. All those things are different, right? When I was working with ICE, as Jill noted, it was a different time. You pretty much had to have a degree to even be hired at ICE. I mean, they would take some police officers that didn't have bachelor's degrees that had some kind of experience, but it may be a whole different deal now.
I'll tell you that, and we saw that in some police departments. We saw it here in Detroit. I know I saw it in DC. There were certain years where there were huge pushes to recruit and hire a lot of officers. And those classes, they would call them in DC, it was like the class of 93 or whatever. There were a lot of crooked cops in there. There were a lot of bad cops because the screening process was lowered because and the standards were lower because they needed to fill those jobs. And I fear that when you do mass hiring of an agency like ICE, where you've got to just load up those positions, you're going to get some people who probably shouldn't be in those positions.
And Tamari's talking about the Fred Hampton homicide. That was in Chicago, I believe, and that started with some crooked Chicago cops that were in bed with some federal officers, if I remember right. I'm trying to remember a little bit, Tamari. I read about it, but it was tragic what happened there, and I believe Chicago. I think Chicago are the officers that killed Fred Hampton.
Well, look,
those are crooked cops that deserve to spend the rest of their life in prison.
We see some. I mean, look, I've known a lot of FBI agents who are nothing but totally upstanding, but we saw like in Boston with Whitey Bulger, who was a mobster there. He had alliances with some FBI people, particularly one guy who ended up going to prison for murder, for assisting Whitey Bulger in a murder. So it happens. I mean, in every profession, you're going to have somebody who's not on the up and up. It's just inevitable. You hope that, as you say, other agents don't turn their heads. And in police departments, I think in big police departments,
courage.
Yeah, in big police departments, look, some of the narcotics gangs over the years, some of them were a little shady. Some of them I knew.
Well, there's no doubt about that. I spent years in a narcotics group, and some of those people were,
Some were loading their socks. They were loading their socks up with money during raids.
Well, I never saw anything like that, but I
was told by some people, or they were lying about search warrants and falsifying search warrants.
Correct. I saw that.
Yeah.
True sensation of FI says training means nothing under this administration. And what's tragic about that is if that's correct, and it seems like it may be, these are 50-year problems, right? This HSI and Homeland Security doesn't get a free pass in 5 years from now when there's a new president, everybody starts trusting them. These are like the Fred Hampton homicide, like Kent State with the National Guard. These things linger for 30, 40, 50 years if they are behaving that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, let's take a quick commercial and then we'll be right back.
Nearly 30,000 vacant lots all over the city of Detroit are for sale right now. That's right. Nearly 30,000 vacant lots are available now, starting at just $100. The lot next to your house or the lot down the street. Make it yours today in just a few simple clicks. Find out if it is available by visiting buildingdetroit.org. At the Detroit Land Bank Authority, side lots are just $100 and neighborhood lots sell for $250. You can apply and pay online today by visiting buildingdetroit.org. And if you don't see the lot you're looking for, call our offices. Our phone number is 313-974-6869. Again, that is 313-974-6869.
Okay, welcome back to Detroit in Black and White. Friday night in Detroit. We're coming off a great, let's talk something a little lighter, the Detroit Lions for a few minutes. Jim, did you watch
I did. I watched every second, and we'll see where they go from here.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I had to get back to a couple of our viewers,
Okay,
if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I don't want to ignore them. Mr. Duckadoo said we disagree if they're rogue. If they're running around with masks, my understanding is the masks have been peeled off, and there's no reason for a federal officer, unless he's involved in a dangerous undercover operation, to be wearing masks. And I think that's something that, when it came out, there's just no reason for it. They're not doing anything where they shouldn't be able to show their faces. And if they're not proud to be wearing that uniform, if they're not proud to be carrying out the law, if they're not doing it following the Constitution, they need to unmask, all of them.
Right, I agree.
Stephanie Jackson said black families are separated daily for the adults who violate the law. If blacks engage in the same hostile behavior with law enforcement, the tone of the Democrats would be different. That's an interesting take. And Tamara Israel is training American cops to abuse American citizens. I
don't know about that, but
go ahead.
I think there are some police. I mean, I know the FBI has gone over there to learn about terrorism. But I don't know. Jim, you would know.
I did have received some training, but under a former Israeli officer, but it was not that kind of training. So it was more interview and written statements. But he's a gentleman that travel all over the country to give that kind of training.
I would say most of the law enforcement agencies who have gone to Israel for training, it's been training in counterterrorism,
military kind of training.
Yeah, not for street stops or whatever. I mean,
I'm not aware. So
the Israeli police aren't better than the American police when it comes to just regular patrolling the streets and stuff like that. I mean, I think American police, are probably, a fairly high standard for the rest of the world. But as far as counterterrorism, look, New York City, it's interesting. New York has, and I know some people have worked in there, they have a counterterrorism in the police department. They've hired ex-CIA people, former FBI people. They are as good as the FBI. And in fact, they have people in Europe who gather intelligence there. So the New York, and I'm sure some of the training has happened in Israel and some other countries that fight, terrorism and stuff. But as far as everyday police work, I don't think the Israelis have anything over on the American police.
There may be some specialized training, and there may be examples of that. So I'm not going to say it's not happening, but I'm not familiar with it. Ira's back. We're glad to see you, Ira. You look good. I hope you're feeling good.
IT. All right, let's just recount everything for Ira. Just kidding, IT. Okay, so here's Tamara. What is that? How do we say that? Tamari. They're arresting Mexican gangs that are organized and could target ICE agents for doing their jobs. They need to wear masks.
Okay, I see that, Tamari, but I can tell you this. With the society that we live in, people can find out who everybody is. The names are on the documents, and they could track ICE agents down. I get the point, but I think they're wearing masks to protect them against other things. I think they're wearing a mask because of the politics, personally, and I just think it's a bad look. You know, there are people that target federal agents or people that target cops. You know, it's part of what you take when you take that responsibility, when you raise your hand and take an oath to the Constitution, the United States Constitution, to behave within the Constitution.
Well, I'd say that ICE agents are not working undercover. I mean, certainly, I'd be concerned as an ICE agent if I was doing raids and people were taking pictures of me and putting it on social media. I wouldn't love that. But look, when you're a police officer, you're subjected to the same thing. You make arrests, you go to a party or whatever, you're arresting people. There's a possibility your photo's going to end up, you know, I mean, but the downside is that what was happening is that there were some people, and probably a small amount, impersonating ICE agents and committing crimes in the same way we've seen people impersonate DEA agents and cops, do traffic stops and rob people and do whatever. So.
True Sensation is doing her best, Adolph, and she says, "F the Lions." Thank you, True Sensation.
So
okay, thank you, Tamara. Yeah, that's there will. I guess it is a different time. You're not wrong. That their family, they could be in danger, and their families could be in danger. But
it's possible. Yeah, I mean, it's
she's not wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a concern. I mean, social media, you didn't have when you were starting out in the police department, you didn't have social media, you didn't have videos. I mean, now we see streaming of videos that go viral. It's some of it's good and some of it's bad. I mean, look, the in Minnesota, in Minneapolis with the death. There. I mean, if it hadn't been on video, I think a lot of these cases, had they not been on video, nothing would have ever happened. No police officers would have been prosecuted for stepping over the, but now we have video everywhere. And now, supposedly most officers are supposed to be wearing video.
So I would be interested in Ira's position on the bombing off the coast of South America. Ira has, he's from experience. He knows all about due process, and some of the people that are contributing tonight may not have some other positions on due process. But I'd sure like to know what Ira thinks about the United States government, killing people off the coast. We all know the dangers. Let's face it, right? Anybody that doesn't understand why we have a drug problem, it's demand, right? It's demand that started however long ago. If we didn't have demand in the 1920s, they wouldn't be driving liquor, on the ice across from Windsor to Detroit, right?
Right, sure.
Or under the river, whatever they were doing, right? The tunnels. So the reason we have a drug problem is in the United States, sure, people get hooked, but it's still created by demand, and people have due process in this country. And, Ira can tell you, how many investigations he's been on where they got 30 or 40 or 50 or 100 kilos. They didn't bomb the house because they knew there was 100 kilos in there. They didn't just blow up the house on, 14th Street or whatever. They arrested the people, and they were entitled to due process. And that's the problem I have with us killing people. As I said, if it happened, if some boaters were leaving out of, wherever, Alabama, and they ended up down in Mexican waters, and the Mexican authorities thought they were, transporting something, and they blew up their boat, I think the United States government would have a problem with that.
Well, when you bring up the point, I mean, in Mexico has said this before, where we blame all the exporting countries are bringing dope to the U.S., but what are we doing to drop the demand, to do more treatment, to get people off addiction? The demand is here. I mean, the market is here. People are whatever. Now, I think a lot of the drugs these days are prescription illegal.
Sure. Well, that starts, and then they buy street heroin because it's the same kind of opioids that people get addicted to because their doctor gave them 100 Vicodin. Now they still have the pain, and they don't have the prescription, so they end up buying street drugs.
Yeah. For a lot of money. One pill is $60, $75 for someone.
I'm not vilifying the users. That's not what I'm doing here. I'm just
no, I'm just saying that we've got to do a better job of dropping the demand by offering more treatment centers to, educating people more on certain drugs that are just, fentanyl is a dangerous drug. It's a legitimate drug used in hospitals, but we just had a guy, I think a Grosse Pointe Park nurse, who was working at a hospital in Detroit. He was stealing the fentanyl, leaking out taking the fentanyl out of the vials, liquid fentanyl, and then filling it with like saline solution. And so here it is, the patients who are trying to get some relief from pain are getting shot up with saline solution, which, is horrible. When you're in
horrible
pain,
is a good word.
You come out of surgery, all cut up, and you're looking for some relief.
You're absolutely right, Allan. Before we leave, I think it's totally wrong, and transparency is key. I agree. Trump and his army of thugs are damaging our country's reputation. The legend Ira Todd, 66.99. I just want to say thank you to everybody. We were light tonight, and you guys kept it interesting, and I just want to say thank you for that. I'm talking about all our contributors tonight.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. I'm not sure we've decided whether it's going to be virtual or we're going to be at the Guardian, but one way or another, we will be back, hopefully with a fuller crew.
And we hope to see everybody again in the morning. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Thank you.